And whenever you're ready.
Hello, Leah, Zeno, and I will focus on the problem of foreign labor issues in Malaysian palm oil plantations, where 80% of the workforce is made of migrant workers, many of them working-age men from desperate circumstances in their home countries. The laborers in the plantations were facing adverse working conditions even before the COVID crisis, and now the weak links in the system protecting workers are being exposed, despite considerable efforts over the past decade to improve conditions. News reports and human rights activists have highlighted many stories of misery and financial woe for workers, with stories of forced labor violating agreed-to contracts.
Hello, my name is Leah Fior.
Hi, I'm Ilma Zinodibo.
I'm Mohammed Ahsanur Rahim. With experience in teaching, banking, and auditing, we recognize our biases and strengths in analyzing this critical topic. We understand that there's no single explanation for the precarious situation that many labor find themselves in, but instead is a culmination of issues with the system under which their livelihoods depend. The understanding of the problem is colored by our experiences dealing with multiple obstacles to helping develop sustainability in our lives, especially with regard to developing better consumption and waste habits. There has been government intervention in the recruitment and transfer of labor with mixed results. There are agreements such as the RSPO to develop sustainable palm oil, which have come under significant criticism. Considering the key sources of knowledge from the issue and our experiences, we can surmise that the best way would be to involve all the key players. This being a global issue, we seek to identify leverage points that enable a uniform alleviation of key problems with the supply chain of palm oil without transferring responsibility. Given that the scale of the use of palm oil is truly mind-boggling, we have taken a systems thinking approach. We have used academic and gray literature to conduct our research and have applied what we learned using systems thinking techniques, using a causal loop diagram and teachings by Donella Meadows. A conservative estimate of the amount of land used for palm oil production states that a large amount of the product is produced in uncertified or problematic locations. This is made worse by the need for palm oil ingredients in several products in daily and consistent use by consumers in the vast majority of countries around the world. The beneficiaries of the current system are the plantation owners, palm oil mills, and international corporations who get to reduce costs, increase profits. The plantations in Malaysia produce palm fruit to be processed in oil mills. The oil mills in turn convert the raw commodity into a form usable to make myriad consumer products. Our focus will be on the labor practices that are prevalent throughout the value chain in Malaysia, with particular emphasis on foreign labor.
The increase in the number of people working in Malaysian plantations is related to the growing demand for palm oil. The demand for increasing yields of palm oil is leading to the need for additional plantations and oil mills that process the harvest. This in turn leads to an increasing number of laborers working on various aspects of the planting, growing, harvesting, and then the processing of palm fruit. An average consumer does not get to see the welfare of the human factor behind the palm oil ingredients in the many products they buy, making it more challenging for them to consume responsibly. Given this limitation, our proposed levers for change will not be focused on the end consumer, but instead the corporations responsible for sourcing the raw material. One goal of our research is to identify leverage points for change to improve labor conditions in the Malaysian palm oil industry. We use a causal loop diagram consisting of labor-related elements specific to Malaysia, those are represented by light green nodes, and global market forces elements, represented by light purple nodes. Reading the map from left to right, the system boundary identified is key parts of the value chain leading to the conditions for plantation labor, which starts from deprived communities in countries like Nepal and Bangladesh that experience a low employment rate. This drives employment-related migration to Malaysia, where they become part of the foreign workforce as both documented and undocumented workers. Some barriers to international employment can be relieved through labor market development, such as migration policies, leading to more transparency for workers seeking opportunities and enhanced freedom of association, a solution that could ultimately bring greater unionization to represent the workers' voices. As the global demand for products using palm oil continues to rise, worker well-being needs to be prioritized as a matter of human rights and plantation productivity. The way the problem is likely to evolve is threefold: an increase in the use of technology, greater government oversight, and increased involvement of international organizations. While greater use of technology in the harvesting and processing of palm oil increases operating efficiencies, it could lead to a decline in the number of workers needed. This could in turn have the unintended consequence of a greater and more expensive struggle for fewer positions on the plantations. The other development, greater involvement of government agencies, could reduce the severity of corruption in the recruitment and transfer of labor to the plantations, if and only if government involvement itself is properly monitored and carefully assessed without undue burden to laborers and employers. Lastly, an increased involvement of international organizations sanctioned by the primary buyers to facilitate the monitoring and reporting with consequences for non-compliance. This creates a reinforcing feedback loop and exposes a leverage point for intervention within the existing system.
Interpreting the causal diagram from the previous slides, we identified 3 out of the 12 leverage points presented in Donald Meadows' book, Thinking a System, that are relevant to our research. Considering the time frame and the need for immediate relief, we identified both short and long-term leverage points, listed from the least effective to the most effective. One of these points of intervention is to increase the number of certified plantations while increasing the quality of the certification process and RASPO standards for foreign labor equipment and welfare. According to Donald Meadows, this is leverage point number 12, numbers. Although a least effective way to change the system structure, this aims for incremental change, allowing RSPO to strengthen plantation workers' protection and decrease the impact of exploitation in the system. This will lead to the reduction of unsustainable production practices. A more effective point of intervention is to increase the flow of information in the system, which is leverage point number 6. This can help to create global awareness on labor-specific standards, using this information to influence third-party decisions, both from the buying companies and the consumers of palm oil products. To further support these efforts, the creation of Palm Oil Plantation Workers Union can be used to change the system structure, which is leverage point number 4. This area of intervention would address current plantation practices and lead to the development of collective solutions to protect the rights of plantation workers while catering to their well-being. From our research, we have learned that the value chain in Malaysia's palm oil plantation system follows a shifting the burden archetype. This means that the solutions to the systemic problem reduces the symptoms but does nothing to solve the underlying problem. To fully address the gaps in the Malaysian palm oil industry and its production system, more emphasis must be placed on the labor criteria to tackle the underlying labor issues. RSPO needs to be strengthened to develop a more dynamic framework to monitor palm oil plantations and reduce the precarious working conditions in Malaysia. Furthermore, accountability and transparency are key factors to consider, as improving reporting standards is important for buyer and third-party involvement, and it's also critical for consumer education. Lastly, documentation of local workers is crucial in changing the system structure. By reporting through organizational sustainability lens, socially responsible production patterns can be practiced in Malaysia, and the protection of labor rights can be achieved by promoting safe and secure working environments for all workers, including these migrant workers. All these can contribute to Sustainable Development Goal 8 in Malaysia, which is decent work and economic growth. In conclusion, through our research of the Malaysian palm oil industry, we have learned how to apply system thinking tools to solve complex problems that impact multiple stakeholder groups. We have also learned that solutions can be applied through incremental and consistent timely changes to provide greater outcomes within the existing system and enhance efforts put forward by key stakeholders in Malaysia and globally. We conducted our research holistically, recognizing that proposed solutions applied in Malaysia needs to be replicated in other regions, given that palm oil is being produced around the globe. We based the proposed solutions which we addressed as leverage points in the previous slide, keeping in mind that we aim for scalability at a global level, at a global system level, rather than addressing the issues solely at the country level. Thank you.